And so there's a connection and an idea that they can get them to the promised land. And for some of them, as we know, they're just not at the level that these, if you go back to Tampa, now Florida, the teams that have won, what it actually takes and how they ultimately get over the hump to be a playoff team, to then a Stanley Cup contending team, to then being a Stanley Cup winner. There's 3 different steps there, and each one of them is extremely hard.
With Chris Pronger, and we were talking about Buffalo earlier, and they traded J.J. Peterka to Utah, and they bring in a couple of pieces, but Kevin Adams has been there for 5 years now, and they haven't sniffed the playoffs. They've been to the playoffs in 14 years. It's just crazy, man.
I don't foresee them getting there next year either.
I don't either. And that's the thing. Like, if you're in Buffalo, if you're a season ticket holder there for 14 years, you're going into year 15, they're not making the playoffs next year. What do you
imagine
selling?
if you moved to Buffalo 14 years ago, like just in town, and you bought season tickets, and you called one of your friends, and you're like, "How's that new team you've been supporting?" And you've been like, "Well, I've been supporting them for 14 years, and they've never gone to the postseason." That would
never come close. So
yes.
By the way, the sad
it.
thing is, the last time they were in the playoffs, I was playing and we beat them. That's the last time.
Right, exactly. It's been that long. You were still playing and you knocked them out.
Yeah.
But that's an example, man. There's like Detroit's not far off, man. Let's call it as we. I mean, the reality is Detroit hasn't been in the playoffs in a long time either.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't know where they're going.
I don't see how they're going to be better, unless they make game-changing moves.
Yeah. I mean,
or there's somebody within their system makes a miraculous development and all of a sudden becomes a all-star.
Right.
Which should happen with that defenseman, that Sider. If Sider turns into some kind of guy that logs 30 minutes and is ever since he won Rookie of the Year, you're like, what is this guy now? He's not a game changer out there.
That's exactly it. I would argue, he's kind of plateaued. He came out great. We were high on him when I worked in Florida. We wanted to draft him. And he obviously went much earlier than we were picking. But, I really liked him. I watching him play as a 18-year-old, I really liked his upside. And then you see him come into the league and how he played. You're like, wow, he could be this guy up here playing 30 minutes a night, physical, game changer on that department. Good puck mover, but however they've managed their younger players there, they just haven't. They've gotten a little stale. They just haven't taken that next step in the development curve and maturation process. And whether it's the losing, it is not easy to continually lose over and over in the league, and it can be very frustrating.
That's with a guy like Sider, I've always felt, maybe I'm wrong in this assessment, he was a bit overrated offensively and underrated defensively. I don't think he's really super efficient moving the puck. I don't think he's a quarterback on the power play. They have him there. That's the thing.
He's a shooter. He's a shooter,
okay.
And he's an A to B. He's an A to B. He's not a facilitator in
exactly
like an Erik Karlsson where he's creating.
Doesn't walk the line, doesn't create deception, all of that type of stuff. Yes, those are special players that do that. But to your point, Prongs, early on it looked like he had the upside to do that, and I think in the league has sorted him out. Going, you're right, he's an A to B guy. I think he's pretty good physically down low. I think he uses his body well. He's got a little bite to him. I do think he defensively is pretty strong when he wants to be, but offensively, I think we look at this guy and go, isn't he supposed to be a 60-point guy? And you're like, that's not a 60-point defenseman for what he's doing. So how does he change that? Does he need a better partner to play with, or does he just be a really good kind of number 2 guy?
Jamie, they need him to be better.
But
they need a centerman better than Larkin, because Larkin, as good as he is, he's not a number 1 centerman in the National Hockey League. And they need a guy in between the pipes that can stop a puck, because that's been a laughable scenario for 5 years min.
I like Larkin. I think he's a 1, but I agree. I don't think they have a number 1 goaltender. They got the Kosa kid coming. That's maybe has a chance. But I think at the end of the day, I guess my question is as a defenseman, how do you you can't teach that type of top end skill at the NHL level to walk the line. Like Morgan Riley is a guy who gets points, right? Yeah. But he's not a guy who walks the line and creates deception in that. He's a very, he's a good skater. He does things really well, but there's things he doesn't have that elite offensive, vision.
But how many do? You look at Quinn Hughes, you got Makar, you got Werenski. I mean, the list starts dropping off after that.
Right. Yeah.
That are in that elite level.
Yeah.
Bouchard walking the line, but even him walking the line, he's not walking the line like those guys. He's walking the line knowing he's going to give it to McDavid or Draisaitl.
Right.
That's why he's walking the line.
Yeah.
He's giving it back to one of those two. And then he kind of turns and he's able to open up and create from that. You talk about developing defensemen, like you talk about Buffalo. What are they doing with Owen Power? First overall, gave him a big ticket, and who are you going to play him with? Are they now? Is Kesselring going to be the answer? Is that who they're going to pair him with?
Probably.
Well, what about his own play? Like his own play better shoot up the.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. But who's helping him? How do you get to him in the sense that, like, his compete level is this big? Like he does not push back defensively. Yeah. He doesn't use his frame. But to me, that's coaching. That's the leadership around him. That's people in the locker room talking to him, developing, learning the game within the game. They don't have anybody like that there. Like Darlene,
it should be a scenario.
Darlene's a couple years older than him.
Yeah, there should be a scenario where a free agent right-handed defenseman or whoever this guy they brought in would be dying to play with this guy, and because he's so good and he's going to be the next generational talent, as opposed to what's happening now is, hey, can you help this guy along? That's crazy stuff, man.
Well, Power needs to get. If you look at him, though,
that's Buffalo for you, man.
But if you look at him,
the Buffalo Sabres.
That's true, though. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, first overall pick.
Yeah. I'd like to see him.
Sorry, Noodles. Go ahead. The mistake that they made is he hadn't even played 80 games in the National Hockey League, and they gave him an 8-year contract for $8.5 million. He didn't even play 80 games in the league yet. And they didn't get a chance to develop him. They didn't get a chance to see the upside. They didn't get a chance to see, what does the ceiling look like. Instead, they just handed him all the money. Oh, dog, if you're 20 years old and you're given $8.5 million for 8 years, and you didn't even have to prove anything, I mean,
pretty good life.
Where is the carrot? Where's the cherry on top?
Yeah, I played. And I know that
comes from inside. I know that comes from the inside. It comes from drive. Well, but shouldn't you know that a player is driven if you're going to give him that kind of money?
Yeah. Well, the other part of this that I could add to that, though, Prongs, is it's been proven, like markets like that are afraid to lose their players, right? Yes. So you get somebody to commit to that market, that's a win, right? Like that's really the truth here where we're talking about. There's certain markets that